Hi, I'm Amanda Bullard. I'm 32 years old from Bayleton, Alabama, and I'm applying to the Doctorate of Nursing Practice program at Jacksonville State University. I currently reside in Bayleton with my husband Josh and my daughter Taylor. Just to tell you a little bit about me, I went to Fairview High School. I graduated in 2003. I immediately started my associate's degree in nursing at Wallace State in Hanceville and graduated in 2005. I had some, sort of tech experience as a student at Montclair and Open Heart ICU and step down. But then when I graduated and got my license, I chose to work closer to home and I went to work at Coleman Regional Medical Center in the pediatric unit or pediatric floor. So we saw a lot more than peds, though. We saw peds, med surg, some post op. You just never knew what we were going to get. So I had really good rounded experience there. I was there for 2 years. In those 2 years, I had my daughter Taylor, who was very preemie. She was born at 30 weeks. And so I knew that her coming home, when she finally did get to come home, I would need to make a change in my work setting so that I didn't put her at risk. So that's when I went to work in home health. Home health gave me invaluable nursing experience, how to work on an interdisciplinary team, how to, really assess the patient in the home, how to teach the patients and their families how to take care of this patient. That's something that's so important. And when you do it in the home, you're gaining independence. You're really learning what is absolutely necessary, priority, what's most important, how am I going to reach these people? So I was learning all these, sort of skills that I would take with me throughout my entire nursing career. I left home health after 2 years because I just felt like I wanted more. I needed more in my nursing career. So I had started getting the rest of my prerequisites for my bachelor's degree, but I hadn't actually entered a school yet. In 2009, a friend of mine introduced me to Bradford Health Services in Warrior, Alabama, and that is an addiction treatment center. It's behavioral health care for chemical dependency. And I had never worked in that setting before. She told me she loved it, but it was definitely different than anything she'd ever done, and she was right. So I started working there in 2009. I quickly was asked to be charge nurse, and that's where I learned how to really manage and control chaos. Because when you have 200 patients and 5 nurses, it really does seem like chaos a lot of the time. So it was a very good learning experience in leadership and management and prioritization, delegation, and then not only was I doing that, but I was teaching my coworkers to do the same thing so that they could replicate, what I was doing as charge nurse, which led them to be leaders and led them to succeed and go on. So in 2011, after I had been working on the floor for about 2 years, my administrator asked me to be the interim director of nursing. And then in 2012, the permanent director of nursing. And that's really, that role right there is really where I found my niche. That's where I really felt like, my career had led up to this. This is what I was supposed to do. I didn't even know that that's what I was going to do when I went into nursing school. I had no inkling that I would be any type of director. But I really felt like that's where I was supposed to be. And I just loved it. I loved everything about it. I was sitting on these task groups and learning how to bring about change in my facility. I was learning about evidence-based practice and treatment protocols and, other facilities, how they do things. And I realized I needed more education. I needed to go ahead and further my education so I would be better prepared to serve in this role that I loved. So I obtained my bachelor's from JSU in 2014 and my master's in 2016. And that's when I really got some invaluable knowledge to help me in my role. As the director of nursing, I'm responsible for 55 employees. 7 are non licensed, and the rest are licensed nurses, RNs, and LPNs. We have, like I said, 189 beds, but we're expanding to 204 beds within the next few days. So we're going to have a lot more patients to take care of, but we have the highest number of staff members we've had since I've been there, so we're prepared. But that is, this role that I'm in, it just there's so much to it. And one of the things that I noticed in my role, because I do the hiring for my department, I interview with people to determine if they're a good fit for us. I realized that nurses coming out of nursing school, they don't have a lot of knowledge about our patient population. It's just not something that's in the forefront of nursing school because, that's not, it's just a small part of what nursing is. But the truth is that 51% of Americans, or people in general, are affected by addiction in some manner. So every single nurse coming out of nursing school will care for a patient who has been in some manner affected by addiction. But not every single nurse will have all the necessary skills to do that effectively. So, I noticed that we had poor retention rates among nurses, especially new grads. I think primarily because they didn't understand what was expected of them in our field. I work with nurses in recovery. I have several nurses in recovery on my staff. I do their monitoring for the board and communicate with the board, and all of that. So, I have nurses in recovery, and they do very well. But the new grads who aren't familiar with addiction, they just never fared very well in our setting. And so I wanted to change that. So in my master's program, I decided to implement a nursing preceptorship and clinical rotation through our facility for nursing students. So that's gone really well. We have 4 participating right now and 2 more coming on in the summer. I go out to the schools that want to participate, and I do a little lecture for them, a presentation on addiction nursing and substance abuse. And then, they come and do their rotation with us, and they have loved it. Some have even expressed interest in working in our field. It's very different from anything that they'll ever see in the hospital. Our setting is just so different. So I think it's important for them to experience that. And so kind of how all that came about reminds me of a theory that I utilize often in our population. Rogers diffusion of innovation theory states that, if someone introduces a new idea, and it takes hold and other people talk about it, it will really bring about change. And that's kind of what, I strive to do in my practice. So with our population, it's the same thing. The diffusion of innovations theory really works well for a population who's been used to taking drugs their entire life, and we're introducing this new thought that will work if they'll, let it. So that's kind of how that works. The same thing happened with my nursing staff. They were all just could not believe I was going back to school with me working full time and having a family. And they thought, they said, I can't do that. I don't know how you can do that. But they saw me do it, and they saw me succeed. And now 4 of them are going back. 2 are going back to get their bachelor's and master's, and 2 other ones are going back to get their RN. So, introducing these new ideas to further their knowledge. And they're great nurses. And that's the one thing about being a good leader, is acknowledging and noticing what other people have that can make them great leaders, and sort of fostering that. So that's kind of what I strive to do in my role. I want to lead them. We monitor, quality control measures, performance improvement measures, and then I want to tell them about it so they can make it better, so they can improve. So there's just lots of ways that, I love nursing. I love my role. I love learning, and I want to further my knowledge. For me, nursing is an art and a science, and where those two things come together, that's where you get the most excellent nursing care. So, a nurse who really cares about her craft, who really wants to foster it and take excellent care of a patient. They have a passion to take care of patients, or to be in their field, whatever field that is of nursing, and they back that up with evidence-based practice. That's where you get excellent care, and that's what I want to foster. But I also want to introduce these new nurses and current nurses to our field of addiction treatment. So I have spoken at several conferences this year and Nurses Day at the Capitol, trying to spread the word, and that's what I hope to accomplish with my DNP. I want to I want to expand, the community's knowledge, the nursing and medical community's knowledge of addiction treatment, and how we can best combat that with evidence-based practice. So, and I hope I get to do that as I go forward with my DNP. So, thank you very much for listening.